ReviewTyme is the home for all things theme parks. Stay up to date with our videos by subscribing and tapping the bell icon.
Welcome one and all, y'all come have a ball. Things are very fine, riding on the old Knott Berry line.
If you went out to Knott Berry Farm in 1975, you would have been in for a big surprise. Bears had taken up residency at the Berry Farm, and they wanted you to come along on a fantastical journey to the fair, meeting all manner of crazy characters along the way. Knott's Berry Tales was the brainchild of famed Disney Imagineer Roland Crump, and showed the true marvels that could be made when Imagineers stepped away from Disney for a little bit. Berry Tales was a wonder of theme park design, featuring countless animatronics, special effects, and an oh-so-memorable soundtrack. This was especially marvelous for a park that only a few decades earlier only offered boysenberries and fried chicken. For ReviewTyme, I'm Luke, and this is the story of Knott's Berry Tales, and one of Walt's favorite Imagineers who designed it. On the 27th of February 1930, Roland Fargo Crump was born in California, and his life towards Disney was set in motion. Crump's love of all things Disney began as an adolescent, with his daydreams of Disney's silly symphony cartoons. These daydreams would lead his life down a path ultimately ending up at Disney Animation himself, as a spry, early 20s animator starting work as an in-betweener, someone who animates the frames of lesser importance between keyframes, before quickly becoming an assistant animator, where he would work for a few years until his calling at Imagineering came in 1959, a few years after Disneyland had opened. At WED Enterprises, now Imagineering, Crump would become close to Walt Disney, or as he called him, the old man. He quickly learned that if you were wanting to show something to Walt, it had to be something completely new, something he hadn't seen before. In his time at WED, Roland Crump would create so much that is now seen as iconic in the world of Disney theme parks. Some of the most well-known things we can now thank Rolly for include the Enchanted Tiki Room Gods, the sadly never realized though loved by Walt Museum of the Weird at the exit to the Haunted Mansion, and of course the clockwork toy facade of It's a Small World, a fitting replacement for the Tower of the Four Winds, which he designed for Small World's original outing at the 1964 World's Fair. However, after contributing early designs for the Magic Kingdom, Rolly decided it was time to move on to other projects outside of Disney. And whilst working in Florida a few years later on the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus World theme park, Crump was approached by the Knott family to develop a Gypsy dark ride for the back of their theme park in the Gypsy camp-themed land. Rolly's ideas went through many different character designs, but the one part that stayed true was the idea of a journey to the fair, which remained even when the design brief changed from a Gypsy dark ride to a 1920s themed dark ride, when the Knotts family decided to completely revamp the land the ride would be contained in to the Roaring Twenties. Rolly was tasked with giving a presentation to the Knott family, including the matriarch of it all, Marion Knott. He outlined his ideas for your journey to the fair, and all of the crazy bear characters you meet along the way. Originally, the ride was designed to feature humans throughout, but a sketch of gypsies dancing with bears showed that everybody really liked the bears, so the entire ride was redesigned to feature them. The Knott family gave the go-ahead for the new Knott's Berry Tales and granted Rolly Crump and his design firm $900,000 to create the ride. Originally slated to open in May of 1975, just a few weeks before opening, a fire broke out in the warehouse and destroyed large portions of the ride in an expected arson attack due to union contract negotiations. Blessed with an extra 6 weeks to reconstruct the destroyed portions and finish the rest of the ride, It opened to guests on the 4th of July 1975, to accolades and amazement. Speaking about the ride at opening, Roland Crump himself had to say, "If I had all the time in the world to design this ride, I'd never do it any better than the way it's turned out right now." But now let's step into the ride and see what awaited guests on their trip to the fair with Boys and Bear, Girls and Bear, and the rest of the characters you would see along the way. Once you had reached the end of the queue, you stepped onto a bright red trolley, which after driving past an elaborate mural which laid out the journey you're about to take on the ride, you would enter a portal to the land of bears. Throughout the ride, you would be treated to the tasty smell of boysenberries and the memorable theme song written by Bob Bruner. The story of Knott's Berry Tales sees you meeting an abundance of characters as you travel towards the fair, from Crafty Coyote, the kleptomaniac pie liberator, to the Beary brothers, to the famous blacklight Small World-esque frogs in Frog Forest. One of the more memorable scenes saw your vehicle travel to the gypsy camp of fortune tellers, a throwback to the ride originally being planned for the gypsy camp area. This scene was filled with various gypsy carts and tents, with floating instruments and cryptic messages, reminiscent of a certain Leota-led seance down the road. After trying to have your future read by Sarah Skunk, you would brave the treacherous Thunder Cave, filled with flickering strobe lights and scary trees reaching towards guests. The grand finale of the ride was the Promise Fair, giving riders a final chance to see all of the characters throughout the ride come together to celebrate and bid the guests farewell. The scene took up around half of the entire show building and was filled to the brim with plenty to see and admire. To the right was the medicine man himself, Dr. Fox, and his patented weird juice, as well as Wally the Wire Walker. Floating above guests' head were some adventurous creatures in a hot air balloon, and one of the last things seen was a Knott's Berry family, posing for a family portrait before they wave goodbye to guests and sing the beloved theme song. Berry Tales was an amazing dark ride for Knott's. It was a strong, high-capacity ride which delivered in every category. The sights, sounds, and smells of the ride had a profound effect on those lucky enough to take a trip to the fair with the bears. This was Roland Crump at his creative best, given the freedom to create something truly magical. But sadly, nothing lasts forever. On Halloween of 1986, Knott's Berry Tales was closed, set to become the new Kingdom of Dinosaurs dark ride, to pander to that era's love of dinosaurs. After the ride's closure, animatronics and set pieces would find themselves spread out between employees' private collections and a Camp Snoopy area Berry Tales Playhouse walkthrough attraction, which itself was closed in 1997. Roland Crump would move back and forth between Disney and freelancing in the following years, and in 2004 was inducted as a Disney legend, and received his very own window on Main Street, USA in 2009, which reads, "Fargo's Palm Parlor, predictions that will haunt you. Bizarre, whimsical, and weird. Designs to die for. Roland F. Crump. Assistant to the palm reader. A fitting tribute to the man known for his lovable weirdness." Usually at this point of the video, we talk about any legacy the ride has left. Usually rides close and that's it. But this time, the ride is coming back, over 30 years later. At least, that's what Knott's Berry Farm wants you to think. According to them, Knott's Berry Tales Return to the Fair is a new 4D interactive dark ride that will take guests on an exciting journey through reimagined show scenes that are reminiscent of the original dark ride, taking place 34 years after the original adventure, and will follow Boys and Bear and Girls and Bear as they travel to the country fair. Guests will climb aboard ride vehicles equipped with jelly blasters and try to recover the stolen boysenberry pies as they travel through whimsical and beautiful environments, while competing for the highest score. This new age version of Beary Tales, set to open in 2020, is a Triotech shooting dark ride, a screen-based re-theme of the disappointing Voyage to the Iron Reef attraction, and looks to sadly have no animatronics in sight. So 35 years after closing, the Bears will return home to their original show building, but only time will tell if any of the original charm comes back, or if we will be left with another case of shoving Figment back into the Imagination building to shallowly appease fans. We'll find out in the next year when Knott Berry Farm opens the ride in celebration of its 100th birthday. Today, Roland Crump lives on as one of Disneyland's biggest critics. He no longer sees the park as the one that Walt Disney and so many Imagineers lovingly crafted. I loved reading his It's Kind of a Cute Story book and looking at all the amazing interviews he has done. One of his favourite moments occurred shortly after the opening of New Tomorrowland in 1967, where Roy Disney came up to him and said, "Are you Roland Crump? My brother used to talk about you." To which Crump's smile widened, a grin as big as a kid discovering a silly symphony for the first time. The dream of that adolescent Roland had come true. For Review Time, I'm Luke. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing.
Welcome one and welcome all, folks, to a family fair for all folks riding on Knott's Berry Tale ride. We'll go back to the roaring 20s and you'll come out a roaring plenty when you see what the Bruins are brewing in